Good morning to you all in this wonderful Baltimore DevOps community. We are privileged to be here, and we thank you all. We want to hopefully share what may be some useful information in terms of what we've been doing at Nielsen in our DevOps journey. So maybe there's some useful things there for you. The point here is to share. We want to talk about what we've been doing, some of our failures, some of our successes, and from what we can learn from you and in this journey, what we can share is part of what it's all about. So that's what we're here to do today. We're going to talk a little bit strategically about what we've been doing as an organization, a global organization, but I'm really just the setup guy to bring it to my colleagues here who are going to talk to you about the local Baltimore area radio measurement business and what the DevOps journey has meant to them. So we're going to go from where we've been and what we're doing in the future as we go forward. But first, some introductions. My name is Brent Breaux. I have been functioning as the Agile and DevOps transformation lead within the global media division of Nielsen. And I have a background in software development, team management, program and product management, and Agile coaching. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing my colleagues. They will speak briefly and introduce themselves much better than I can, but I'm the guy in the middle there. And that's enough about me. But for those of you that were in the open spaces with me yesterday, you probably know me as the guy who talks too much. Okay, a little about Nielsen before we get in. So if you're not familiar with Nielsen, we are a company that has got its bread and butter in measurement and analytics. We're definitely a big data company. We've been around for a while. We've been founded by Arthur Nielsen in 1923, so we've been around for a while. We know this measurement business. We've been at it for quite a long time. We're global. We operate in over 100 countries, and we have about 44,000 employees worldwide. And we cover about 90% of the world's population in terms of measuring what people watch and engage with in a variety of formats and ways. So I'm going to talk about the steps we've taken. And one of those steps we took was starting in 2015, we began our Agile journey, which, as someone who's done a lot of Agile coaching in my career, we had a very typical kickoff to going Agile. You may have heard from some of the other speakers some very similar stories, but we jumped in. We had teams come in and work with us in 2-week workshops. And you can see on the screen there, we applied adult learning and gamification, and we made it fun. But in those 2-week workshops, teams were expected to come in however they were functioning and exit as an Agile team. And we worked on their actual work. So it was training, and it was just an in-depth, immersive experience, as much as we could make it. And we later shrunk those to about 2 days. But from there, we wanted to see, well, how did that go? What did we learn? And we had mixed results. We did have some benefits, some great benefits, that the Agile and Scrum terminology and the lingo became prevalent. You could hear people talking about sprints and backlogs in the hallways. We had transparency into the work that the teams were doing. So it was no longer invisible. It didn't just go, from planning into a void, and we didn't really know until there was some release ready what was going on. We had shorter cycles that somewhat improved how things were being delivered in a more iterative fashion. And our leadership was definitely involved and saw value in transforming, but it wasn't holistic. That's the mixed results. We started with tech, and we said, tech, you guys will be Scrum, and the rest of the organization will function as usual. So it wasn't holistic. We didn't really focus on tech practices as much as we should have either. Technical excellence wasn't at the forefront like it should have been. We focused too much on just the process. We still had a strong offshoring practice, which introduces some of its own challenges with time zones and communication and things lost in translation. And it was mandated. It was top down. You will do this. This is your job. So culturally, some things just didn't change. So one of the other things we wanted to do was, in a typical change management fashion, you're trying to bring a change to a large organization. You need to have your ducks in a row on how you're going to communicate. And one of the things we wanted to do was frame, what is this DevOps stuff in comparison to what we did with Agile? What's the difference? And the way, this could be controversial, but one of the ways we defined it was that DevOps is a natural extension of Agile. The way we wanted to frame this and communicate it to our organization was that when you're going from an idea to some sort of value being delivered, we're going to call all of that DevOps. And Agile's definitely a part of that. So they're like peanut butter and chocolate. They just go well together. While you could theoretically do one without the other, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And one of the next steps that we wanted to do in communication was to create our DevOps vision, come up with a strategy, and make sure everyone understood that from across the organization, not just top down. And so we wanted shared goals and responsibility for teams to focus and align to more product-centric ways of working and aligning. We wanted to obviously bring in DevOps and technical capabilities to do CI/CD better and really embrace DevOps in addition to the Agile practices from times prior. And we wanted to take another step to say, let's do something we haven't done regularly, and that's participate in the community. Much like we're here today, we did things like kick off our own internal DevOps Day, about the same size. We're a large company, so we rallied folks in our Global Technology Center and did a series of presentations and communication on what this DevOps stuff is and what we're trying to do. And we took it a step beyond that as well. Our AWS partners participated with us. We had a book signing. And then above and beyond the internal, we did external. We participated in our leadership team, you can see in the picture there, journeyed with us. And we went to Las Vegas and participated in the DevOps Enterprise Summit and got to see that we weren't alone in this. And some of the things we were doing were very validated. So we wanted to know if we were going in the right direction and doing some of the same things as other people. And this is a very wordy slide. I won't get into the nuts and bolts of that. But what we wanted to do coming out of all of this was say, if you're in a particular business unit and you want to get started, how do you do that? How do you go from where you are to where you want to be? And so Dr. Nicole Forsgren of Dora will tell you that maturity models are really bad, and that's pretty much what this is, but it works for us. And what we defined was a couple of lanes on technology and taking a page out of Amazon and saying, hey, how do we embrace running what you build from an operational standpoint? And how do we align and get a product focus to what we've done compared to how we've been structured before? And we came up with some milestones and began to work with teams, much like my colleagues here in the audio group will tell you what this transformation has meant to them. So we established that, socialized it, worked with other people, and tried to say, hey, here's some big ideas. How do we decompose those into things we can actually execute on? Okay, another thing we did, a very tangible thing, we did value stream mapping exercises. We wanted to say, hey, let's do some analysis. What's the current state look like? How long does it take us to deliver that value from the time we have an idea to the time we've actually delivered it? And we had a pretty shocking look at how long that was taking us and how slow it was, and it really underscored the need to really drive forward with some of these improvements, to isolate and say, hey, this is a bottleneck. These are areas where we're having dependency challenges and handoffs, and what can we do about it? And with certain groups, we've engaged and done that. So that was another key step that we wanted to do. And one of the last things I'll touch on was, I mentioned Dr. Nicole Forsgren when we were at the DevOps Enterprise Summit. This is a slide from her presentation where she said, CAB is useless. Change advisory boards have a negative correlation with stability. We embraced that and took it to heart, and we're now currently in the throes of trying to make CAB into a lightweight process to ease the burden on teams, especially as they mature in DevOps and CI/CD and have secured hardened pipelines. And we heard the speakers before talk about a very similar thing where you can look to the logs or to a database where you're putting data for auditors to look at rather than having to produce tons of documentation in an arduous process. So those are a couple of the steps we've taken, and we're by no means perfect. We've done a lot of things poorly, but we're trying to be pointed in the right direction and do the right things and take some of the right next steps. And that's what we're doing holistically as an organization. But now I'm going to hand off, and we're going to hear from Alex, who will introduce herself, about what this transformation has meant to the radio measurement group from a product and program management standpoint.
Thanks, Brent. First, I just want to say how much I love DevOps Days, because we're not all here to talk about theory. We're up here telling you about the things that we've tried and challenged our own teams with in the hopes that you can find even one thing to take back to your business to try. I'm Alex Kistler. I'm a technical product manager at Nielsen. I've been a program manager, a project manager, a scrum master. I've even been an engineer on a lean manufacturing production line. I just have a passion for building good products and doing it the right way. And that's why when Brent and his team brought the DevOps vision to audio, we said, oh, this is great. This is exactly what we're looking for. We want to build the best products. So first, a little bit about our industry so you know where we're coming from. Radio is actually the #1 reach medium in the United States. Radio consumers tune in inside and outside their homes, in their cars, in bars, restaurants, you name it. You're being exposed to radio. And Nielsen's measuring that. A little big brother-ish, yes, but we're measuring that consumption across all mediums, all corners of the United States, even places internationally. And this is across all mediums. So think your typical AM/FM radio station, podcast, streaming, even your smart speaker when you say, hey, Alexa, tune to 106.7. And because Nielsen has such incredible coverage, the data that we produce supports a $16 billion advertising business in the United States alone. And the products we build support over 2,000 clients. So no pressure, but we better get it right. So we were thrilled to jump into our DevOps transformation. But where do you even begin? And we kind of started by asking ourselves 4 simple questions, and you can do this with your own teams. We said first, are we building the right things? I'm sure we all inherently think we're building the right thing, but how do you know? And are you doing it with the best velocity possible? Not just your sprint velocity, but your entire value stream start to finish. And are we being transparent? If we get anything right in the transformation, it has to be this. We have to be aligned to our goals and objectives and have transparent communication the whole way. And along that vein, are we collaborating? At Nielsen, we value diversity. We really believe that the most diverse minds can come together to build the best business solution. So are we collaborating effectively? And the answers to those questions brought us to changes we knew we needed to make in our process and in our culture. So let's start with our process. I mentioned we all want to build the right thing. And the way to do that is to focus on speed and impact. And we had to change our thinking from one of this monolithic waterfall one to one of MVPs. And MVPs in our world, that's not just a minimum viable product. It's also a focus on the minimum viable process. Build it, test it, get it out there, see if it kind of hits the mark, and be okay if it doesn't. And then how do you know you're making the right impact? Well, we did something very specific. We looked at the percentage of our capacity that was spent on work or initiatives that improved our revenue, our growth, new clients, new products. our sustainability, keeping the beast alive, and our efficiency or productivity across our process and our operations. And we asked ourselves, based on this data, do we really think we're making the right impact in the right places? And if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter how fast you get there. And we realized this very quickly, that we had to move with a purpose. And we did that in 2 ways. The first is we built a single roadmap. No longer did we have a technical roadmap, a product enhancement roadmap, an operational one. We put it all on one, and we talked through the business value of every item on that roadmap. So we all knew where we were going and where we were allocating capacity. And then we had to execute it against that roadmap. And we had to change the way we did that too. We had to start doing just-in-time everything. Just-in-time requirements, just-in-time builds, tests, planning, architect. That was really hard for us to change our thinking to do that. And then, you've all heard it, if everything's a priority, nothing gets done. We knew we had to simplify. We wanted to focus on few things, and we wanted to move fast. So we did this by starting to build a single backlog, and we have a ways to go on this. But we've asked all of our cross-functional partners to help us build this backlog, and we're prioritizing it by value. Items don't go on the backlog just to be an idea to die later on. Items expire off of our backlog if they don't have business value or they haven't been prioritized in a while. Why keep them on? We want to focus on the few. And I'm a product person. I'm constantly distracted by the shiny object, as I'm sure some of you or some of your product people are. So it's hard to prioritize that tech work. But we did something, again, very specific. We dedicated 30% of every team's capacity, every sprint, to tech debt, modernization, proof of concept, CI/CD pipelines, new DevOps tools, so that they could explore. And this is non-discretionary to other stakeholders. We wanted to give them a safe environment to do this work in. And we've seen awesome creative solutions come out of this. And all of this, all these points that I touched on, allow us to be transparent with our stakeholders in our business. And they allow us to have real data-driven trade-off discussions, because we all know where our capacity is, we know what our priorities are, and we can have those discussions. And now you can't make a change to your process without also changing your culture. You can't have one without the other, or it falls apart. So we decided to focus our cultural transformation in 3 different areas. The first of which is prioritizing partnerships. We know that in a true DevOps model, reporting structures and silos mean very little. We know that cross-functional, collaborative teams is the tool to success. So we did 2 things here. The first of which is we explored DevOps product discovery teams. And this was literally as simple as tapping people on the shoulder and saying, hey, we think you add value to this thing we're trying to build. You have this specific tool set, skill set. We want you to be a part of the team. And we let them make their own decisions. We empowered the team. And we were blown away by the engagement that came out of that team, because people naturally want to collaborate. They naturally want to work together and work on the right things, so give them that opportunity. The second thing we did is we put a new focus on our operations teams, DevOps. We brought operations farther up in our process, in our requirements, in our sprint reviews, in our testing. We do much more incremental testing now. We move faster, we have better quality, and my friend Sachin up here will touch on that a little bit later. And we challenge everyone on our team, regardless of your role, to be the CEO of your product. Not just the CEO, the CFO, the COO, to constantly ask yourself, hey, what's best for the business? If this were my business, what would I want to do? And I would argue that for all of us in this room, our greatest threat to maintaining our relevance in our respective industries is not being adaptable or welcoming enough to change. Changes from the business, changes in priorities, changes in the industry. If we don't look at it as an opportunity to please, to provide value, we're gonna become irrelevant because they will go find someone who can. And we refuse to be irrelevant. And this last thing, give the people what they want. I'm not running for office in 2020, but this is literally as easy as it sounds. Give the people what they want. Ask your teams, what do you want out of this cultural transformation? And they will say things like, I want trust, autonomy. Give me the ability to make decisions for my product, my team. Give me time and a safe space to experiment with these DevOps tools. Give them those things. I know we're a room full of technological control freaks, and it's hard to let go. But if you do it, you'll be amazed at the outcomes that come from these teams and the engagement. And I love this quote, changing culture changes how we work, and changing how we work changes our culture. You can't have one without the other. And now, this is not to say that change is hard. Change is really hard. And especially a DevOps transformation, all of that change, maybe not everyone survives it. But you have to keep your teams and your people focused on the opportunity that inevitably comes with change. And that helps keep everyone engaged and everyone's eye on the ball. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce my partner in crime, Sachin, to the stage to talk to you about our technical transformation.
Thank you, Alex. So my name is Sachin, first of his name, Protector of the Realms. I felt it was due for a GOT joke or a quote, since yesterday that was all over the place. Anyways, so a quick introduction about me. I have around 15 years of experience. I started my career as a developer. And right now, I lead the technology portfolio for Nielsen Audio here in Colombia. So what we have tried to explain all these while is how we have adapted to the DevOps journey. And as a tech leader, or as a tech developer, I would say, what made us feel that it's important to join this journey, right? So let's start. Perfect. So the first thing we noted and we found that we wanted to change or improve was to define a minimum viable product, just like Alex mentioned. But from a tech standpoint, I wanted to define something which is quantifiable and deliverable, which is easy to deliver. We wanted to take something which is easy workload, is what we call it, a feature, such that we can deploy it and be confident that we can deploy it. I don't want to be committing to something which is far off 2 or 3 months later. I would be far easier, and I'd feel more comfortable to commit to something which I can surely deploy in 2 weeks. So what we did is we kind of mandated to our teams to start implementing or deploy things every 2 weeks. So what that kind of brought in was we started to rethink our delivery strategy. We started to focus on the high priority things first and then get it out to the market. Obviously, we had the same stakeholders as most of you have. Not everybody wants everything, or not everybody wants that one feature that we are ready with immediately. They want it because they are not ready yet. So obviously, the features of having feature toggles and feature mapping, we were able to actually switch it on or off based on our feature toggles to say, OK, this consumer has it, this consumer doesn't have it. Oops. No. Good. Eliminating silos. Obviously, very simple thing, but very effective. We didn't have the problem. With this change, when we brought teams together, and in fact, we were honest, we were fortunate that organization from top down also mandated this. We didn't have to wait for someone to send out an email to someone, for that person to wait for someone to approve so that we can deploy this to UAT. So that was eliminated now. The team knew what to develop, the team knew when to deliver, and more importantly, they knew how to deliver. Continuous delivery, everybody's favorite. I'm pretty sure it's a common term. Same thing, we focused on just 3 things: automation, automated build, automated tests, automated deployments, period. And the good thing is, we use the market tools available so that we could just make use of it. We have a Jenkins pipeline, we have the CI/CD pipeline completely frozen up in the Jenkins. We use all the test automation tools as possible to make sure that we have the automation done. The good thing is, again, the focus was how to reduce this transit time where we have to wait for someone to approve. As you see there, we had to wait for a person to say, yep, you're good to click the switch. That didn't happen anymore. We were actually doing it all our way. How are we doing on time? 4 minutes. Perfect. Infrastructure automation, a developer's dream, I'll tell you. I was a developer, I have been a developer. I don't even know how many times I've told my QA partners that, well, it's not my problem. It works in my machine. It's your problem. It's your environment. I don't care. And they were like, nope, it's your code. Well, that finger pointing, the environment blaming had to stop somehow, somewhere. So we started introducing to package our code and infrastructure together. We have the beautiful options right now, like, I call them beautiful, but we have Terraform. We use Ansible to package up our scripts. We use Docker. And it's much more simpler now. We know what we are deploying, and what we deploy goes as a package and doesn't go like, my code is sitting there, well, I don't know what my environment is looking, and I don't care. That's not the case now. We deploy what we have tested and developed. The last one, which I'll talk about quickly, is the feedback. I think this is one piece which I have been very interested in as we grow up the ladder in the management role. And as our HR partners kind of say, you have to have a continuous feedback loop with your resources. You have to train them. Well, even our code does the same thing. It's just that it doesn't really interact with us. But we've got to check frequently on how they are performing in our environment after we deploy. Maybe they just lose interest after a period of time. They just start going bad, and we have to find out them and make sure that they are patted well and taken care of. So we simply have metrics being calculated. We monitor the logs. We monitor the performance. We optimize the infrastructure. We use basically CloudWatch for all our tracking, and then we have it in the ELK stack for the Kibanas and the Logstash and then Elasticsearch. So with this, we basically monitor our performance, and we improve as we grow. So that's basically what we have to do in our code that we deploy. So as a result, now the ops team, who is basically the users, they're not very hesitant to changes, because they know, well, this guy is going to develop something which is going to be deployed in 2 months or 2 weeks, and he's going to take care of it. I don't have to worry about whether it's not going to work or, oh my God, it's not going to work. So he'll take care of it. So with that, I will stop, and I'll hand it over to Brent.
Okay, thank you, Sachin and Alex, for that view into what's happening in our radio measurement group. And as we have our final minute here, I want to leave you with a quote. I had the pleasure of meeting Jez Humble, who probably most of you know wrote the book on continuous delivery. And so I've quoted him here to tell you all that we're not perfect, we're far from it, we're striving to continually improve, but culturally we want to embrace this idea that DevOps and Agile in general, you can use them interchangeably in this, it's not a goal. There's not an achievable thing that we can say, oh, we're DevOps now, we're done. It's a process of continual improvement. So we're continuing to try to embrace continual learning, continual improvement in all that we do. And with that, I want to thank you all for your time. We appreciate you all having us.